me great pleasure to introduce you to the officer that will be guiding this tour. Let's have a nice round of applause for second in command, Augustini. Let's hear it for Augustini. He's still drinking. Okay. Since he's unable to make it, you'll have to put up with me. What I'd like to do today is to briefly describe all the instruments you see before you, and then talk rather flippantly about the history of the ship itself. If there are any questions that I'm unable to answer, I will fake them. Now that I have your attention, let us begin. The TSS Festival was formerly known as the Transvaal Castle. Where was it built? Well, it was built originally in Scotland in the year 1961 by Union Castle Lines. Formerly a passenger cargo ship, formerly 31,000 gross tons. But today, with all the refurbishing and refitting that has been done to it, it is now 38,000 gross tons and is the 6th largest cruise ship in the world afloat today. The first largest is the Norway. How many noticed the Norway in Miami? You cannot miss this enormous cruise ship. It is the largest in the world, 66,000 gross tons. Its length is equivalent to 3 football fields. That is the Norway. Now, as you know, over the years, the Norway has been notoriously unlucky. About a year and a half ago, they were stranded off the coast of Haiti. How many read about that in the paper? And before that, they had problems in port. They have renamed the ship the No Way. It's a joke. The second largest cruise ship is the Queen Elizabeth II. The third largest, the Oriana. The fourth largest, the Canberra. The fifth largest, the Oceanic. And the sixth largest is the Festival. Now, in addition to the Festival, Carnival Cruise Lines owns and operates the TSS Mardi Gras, the TSS Carnival, and the MS Tropical. The Tropical is one of our newer ships, incidentally one of the newest ships in the world, sailing out of California, calling on Mexican ports. The initials MS that precede the name Tropical stand for motor ship. You will find all the newer ships today are motor ships, so they're more economical to run. Does anybody know what TSS stands for?
Yeah.
Turbine steamship, that's right. Somebody thought it was Titanic's sister ship. It stands for turbine steamship. We are 760 feet in length. We have a total beam of 90 feet, which is the distance from the port side to the starboard side. As a matter of fact, the festival has one of the widest bridges of any cruise ship in the world. So when you go home, you can tell your friends you stood on one of the widest bridges in the world, and your friends will say, so what? The draft is 27 feet. We draw 27 feet of water, and we are capable of docking at every port we call on. Now, some of the larger ships are unable to dock, such as the Norway. Therefore, they have to anchor and tender into port, but we do dock when docking space is available. We hold 1,400 passengers, 580 crew members, some of which you never see because they live down below on the Z deck. That is where the entertainers live. We are below water level, folks. We are so far down, we are served by trolls. Now, as you know, as Joey mentioned last night, there are many nationalities on board, and there is a communication barrier. How many had trouble communicating with anybody on board this ship? Raise your hand. Be honest now. Well, this communication barrier exists mostly, for example, in our dining room. When the waiters and the busboys originally come on the ship, they are trained in the staff dining room. Speaking no English at all, we train them, and then they move on to your dining room, you see. We have the incoming freshmen. You have the graduates. Try communicating with our waiters. I asked my waiter last night for a hot chocolate. He brought me a Hershey bar and a match. On the bridge is a communication barrier. Several weeks ago, an officer went up to the captain. He says, Captain, we have a leak in the engine room. Captain said, permission granted. The ship was refurbished in Japan by the Kawasaki company at a cost of $30 million. The replacement value of the festival today is well over $100 million. Also, invariably, on all Italian vessels, you will notice the abbreviation TMB. Does anybody know what TMB stands for? That's my book. I think I'll play to this side. The operation cost on a daily basis is $70,000 per day. If you're wondering about fuel, the type of fuel we consume is known as bunker sea oil. We consume 250 tons per day, almost 1,000 tons per week. Our fuel bill is over $100,000 per week to operate the ship. If you're wondering about the motors, we have none. Just galley slaves. We have 2 engines. As a matter of fact, many people have wondered how many screws this vessel has. It's a twin-screw vessel. Together they exert a total horsepower of 44,000. The type of engines we use are Everroot outboards. We have 2. Now, it's very interesting to note that each time the propeller makes a complete revolution, the ship is put ahead in the water 25 feet with each revolution in the shaft. I'd like to now briefly, and I stress that word briefly, go over the instruments. Beginning over here on the port side, we have the engine telegraph system. Now, anytime the captain likes to make a change in the speed or knots of the ship, this information is relayed to the engine room, adjusted accordingly down there, and relayed back to the bridge. Right now, we are marked and full ahead. This does not mean we're going our top speed. Right now, we're doing 17 knots, which is our average cruising speed. Our top speed is 22 knots, which we very rarely do, only in the event of an onboard emergency or we're running behind schedule due to bad weather. However, at 22 knots, the festival can pass any other ship on the water, provided they're going the other way. Now, 2 engine telegraphs, one on the port side and one on the starboard side, to accommodate for our 2 engines. To the right of that, we have our main radar scope. If you look in here, to your left, you'll see a cluster of dots indicating land, and to your right, you'll see a fleet of Russian subs. Now, also, if you sort a corner on the side, you will see dirty movies. Rest assured, folks, right now we are in major shipping lanes. We are never more than 8 or 9 miles from a neighboring ship in the event of an emergency, and we're never more than 5 or 6 miles from land. Straight down. Over here, you will notice the watertight doors, which are strategically located on every deck and can be closed simultaneously or one at a time. The watertight doors completely prevent water from entering. Not only do they prevent the water from entering, but they aid in redistributing the weight of the water to prevent the ship from listing. So that way, if we sink level, you see. Moving over here, we have our fire alarm system. This is divided conveniently into 2 parts. This monitors the passenger cabins right here, and this monitors the cargo area. Now, if there's a tremendous buildup of smoke in the cargo area, the bridge would be notified immediately. Billows of smoke would shoot out this vent. Also, we have a smoke alarm lamp, which is broken. Over here, we have our fire alarm block plane. This is essentially a schematic of the entire ship. You will see here upper deck, main deck, Riviera, and Orlock. Now, Orlock, ladies and gentlemen, by the way, that means we're diving. Orlock is the lowest deck for crew. That is the deck where the entertainers live, way down below, folks, in very small cabins. How small are our cabins? Well, we have to go outside to change our mind. The fire alarm system, you will find these sprinklers. How many have noticed sprinklers in your cabins? Yes? Well, when the temperature in a particular cabin reaches 165 degrees Fahrenheit, the glass would be broken and the sprinkler would be activated. As a matter of fact, this week we had 2 sprinklers go off. Those, of course, were in the honeymoon suites. Now, if you find that you do not have a sprinkler in your cabin by now, by all means, stop by the purser's office. And they will give you one you can stick up, okay? Over here, we have the Denny Brown stabilizers, the most important instrument to you as passengers, for they compensate for a large degree of the motion that many of you have experienced and have demonstrated so colorfully. These stabilizers right now are running because we have a long swell hitting us broadside, which is causing us to move slightly. They are fins that shoot out midship. When they are extended, you will notice a blue discoloration in the water. The stabilizers are 15 feet in length, 5 feet wide, and they are operated hydraulically. As they compensate for our motion, they also increase our drag, so we only use them when necessary. Now, in addition to using the stabilizer to control motion, many of you have tried Dramamine. Many have tried drinking. Does anybody know the cure-all recipe? First of all, how many have noticed passengers wandering around the ship all during the week with a little Band-Aid right behind their ear? These people are aliens. Well, actually, that's a seasick device used to control motion. But there is one recipe, one cure-all recipe for seasickness. Does anybody have any idea what it is?
Stay on the boat.
Stay off the boat, okay. The best thing for seasickness, strangely enough, is peanut butter and jelly sandwiches.
Right.
It's true. It's the only thing we know that tastes the same going down as it does coming up. I'm sure you're wondering what this man is doing here. I'm sure he's wondering what I'm doing here. He is not here to sell bingo cards. No. This gentleman is the quartermaster. He is responsible for steering the ship, and he deserves your applause, ladies and gentlemen. You can move out of his way so you can see where he's going. We appreciate it. Right now, we are maintaining a true course of 306 degrees. This gentleman must maintain 306. If he goes off 5 degrees, you will hear an alarm to indicate that he has done so. These quartermasters work very, very hard. They work an hour on and an hour off. Where do they come from? Well, they come from the neighboring islands. They come on board completely untrained. And they are trained by the officers. This gentleman is still in training. To his right, we have an autopilot system which we very rarely use. It's a company policy to have a quartermaster on deck at all times. But he does work very hard. This gentleman's he's from Honduras, yes. He got all his driving experience in Honduras. That's the reason he's turning the wheel so much. Is just like an automobile wheel, he's compensating for the winds and the currents. But he does work very hard. You're saying, it looks like an easy job. Believe me, it isn't. Matter of fact, when this gentleman started, he was 6'5". Above his head, we have a binnacle, better known to you and I as a magnetic compass. We also use this as a periscope when we dive. Now, on the windows, you will notice these large cyclical devices on the port and starboard window. These are windshield wipers, and they are operated by spinning. When they spin, they clear the window. When they stop spinning, the ship begins to rotate. We have one in the port window, we have one in the starboard window, and of course in the center we have a blade. Much like a blade you would find in any automobile. All right. Over here you will notice a screen. Many of you may have noticed it already. This is not for me nor for you. This is for the officers. Purely entertainment. This is a movie screen. And if you look in here right now, they are showing the Poseidon adventure. Also, behind our panel you will notice our charts. The deepest part of the ocean the festival passed across this week is the Puerto Rican Trench. Outside of Puerto Rico, the Atlantic is 5 miles deep. That is the deepest part of the Atlantic.